Psychologica Interactions is a tool or approach to help coaches and other practitioners map the interpersonal dynamics affecting their clients, and also to help understand how to shift to more positive relations. This is the third video in a series of 4, focusing on interpersonal manipulation and other complex transactions. Please also check the other 3 to build the full picture on how to access these tools and free materials for use in your own practice. So far, we've looked at straightforward exchanges using the interactions workpads with clients. Now let's turn to more subtle uses of emotions and see how interactions can help us unpick the games that people play. As a social species, we humans have been fine-tuning our use of emotions to communicate over many millennia of evolution, hence the importance of emotional intelligence in our survival and success. Clearly, at some point, emotional expression would have been even more important than it is today, with our current emphasis on verbal language and the written word. However, it's the emotional authenticity in an exchange which conveys its real meaning, regardless of what's actually said. And most of us are aware when a smile is not genuine, or anger is contrived, or we feel we're being deceived or set up in some way. Some individuals have a highly developed ability to manage emotions and are able to manipulate others for political or personal gain. You could say that this is the less appealing aspect of emotional intelligence. However, we all play interpersonal games from time to time, or maybe even all of the time, where things are not as they seem, and some of these deceptions can actually be outside of our conscious awareness and can become habitual. In coaching, we often find ourselves unpicking such processes, sometimes trying to identify both the costs and benefits to the participants in these exchanges. Often these are not what they appear to be. Interactions can be useful in helping distinguish the real underlying interpersonal processes or dynamics from the surface acting which may be there to mislead us. In this video, we're exploring how to use the interactions worksheets with clients to help deconstruct the manipulative games that people play. First, a quick word about transactional analysis. This is an approach from psychotherapy which can really help here and relates well to the interactions matrix. Transactional analysis considers us to embody 3 principal ego states: parent, adult, and child. Our emotional landscape forms initially in childhood, wherein lies our spontaneous and natural self. Clearly, this is affected deeply by the parental guidance and support we receive, and ultimately over the course of our lives, we develop a parental self, which tends to harbour strong emotional attachments to certain beliefs, values, and standards, which are also largely influenced by our upbringing. According to this theory, as we grow, we also develop our own adult self, which performs an executive function which is not determined by emotions, but on a rational view of the world based on actual evidence and personal experience. However, although this can enable us to function effectively in an objective way, the adult is often contaminated by subjective emotions, leading to prejudicial beliefs from the parent or impulsive and uncontrolled emotional outbursts from our child. This is how our emotions can be troublesome for us if we're not able to manage them. These 3 states can be considered as a development of Freud's well-known psychodynamic theory, representing the id, ego, and superego. During interpersonal transactions, there are numerous possibilities in terms of the origin of an exchange, where it's targeted in the other person, how it lands, the reaction generated, and so on. This is the substance of transactional analysis. Straightforward parallel exchanges generally work well, for example, parental exchanges bewailing the state of the world and indulging in nostalgia, childish exchanges based on fun or play, or adult-to-adult executive functioning, such as in task management and the world of work. However, where they become crossed, things start to get more difficult to manage. Game playing in this respect is where exchanges are not what they appear to be, and carry an underlining and usually undermining hidden message, such as in passive aggression. Coming back to the interactions matrix, The upper quadrants can be thought of as equivalent to the parent positions. Critical parent, which is authoritarian and tends to find fault, and nurturing parent, which is generally supportive and values-driven. The lower quadrants can represent the child positions. Adaptive child, which wants to learn and be liked and tries to be good, and non-adaptive or rebellious child, which is resistant and can be troublesome. Being objective and non-emotional, the adult state is independent of these subjective positions and can be considered as emotionally neutral at the centre of the matrix. Okay, let's explore some games from transactional analysis theory and see how they work with interactions. We use games for various reasons, and these are not always undermining. Sometimes they can be intended as positive, such as little white lies to help build someone's confidence, or sometimes they can just be in fun, to tease or release underlying tension, or maybe they can be to avoid addressing uncomfortable issues directly, which might create some embarrassment. However, even here the motivation may be to avoid revealing personal vulnerability through expressing true intimacy, and as a coach one might explore what the barrier is to openness, or what self-limiting belief may be in play. Our main interest here is in more malicious or mischievous games, such as those practiced in the workplace or in relationships where people may not want to appear critical or say what they really think. These are often based on passive aggression, where externally the dialogue appears positive and assumes an adult-to-adult tone, whereas the actual message may be negative and undermining. Some classic positions of interpersonal conflict have been called the drama triangle, and these fit well here: the victim, the persecutor, and the rescuer. We can also add a fourth from transactional analysis, the stool pigeon or patsy, who may be a naive accomplice that helps to facilitate some games, possibly even being used unknowingly. Or this can even be adopted as a role position by a protagonist in a game. Let's start in this position, using a relationship example we'll call the debt. So this person enters into a long-term relationship with a dominant partner, attracted by their self-confidence and outgoing charismatic nature. However, over time the partner gets a bit bored and some bad behaviours become apparent. But these are overlooked as both try to avoid rocking the boat and keep up an appearance of contentedness. However, below the surface a dynamic develops based on a transactional deal, and the real message is, I am earning the money and paying the mortgage, and therefore you are in my debt and I can do what I like. The outward response to this is along the lines of, I know I'm in your debt, emotionally or materially, so I will forgive your behaviours and be grateful. See how hard I try to please you. This appears to be a bit of a doormat stance, designed to maintain the status quo. However, the unstated internal emotional response may be, I made a mistake over you. If it wasn't for you and your selfishness, I could have been happy. My unhappiness is all your fault. Sensing things are not right, the partner may respond by, for example, buying gifts and treats to compensate for their behaviours, but also to exert control and authority by deepening the debt. See what I do for you? See how much I care? No one else would treat you so well. However, internally, there may be a feeling of guilt and uncertainty. My partner doesn't love me anymore and might leave. Then what would I do? How could they be so ungrateful after everything I've given them? So both parties end up in a negative place and feel victimised, while on the surface trying to maintain the appearance of happiness. The role of the coach would be to help both parties move to a more adult position and consider the facts and realities behind the facade, and to exert more or less assertiveness and adaptation respectively in order to address one another's true needs. The worksheets can help to illustrate relationship dynamics to clients and provide a simple model as a roadmap for change. This also shows they are not alone, as so many interpersonal issues follow these patterns. Okay, now let's look at a couple of classics from the workplace. The abuse of power using a setup is a common form of passive-aggressive bullying used by leaders. It should be a straightforward adult-to-adult transaction. but it isn't. A manipulative boss who is not particularly able appears to nurture and encourage a naive member of staff. We support a developmental no-blame culture here, and we welcome innovation. What ideas do you have? The response is as intended. Oh great, I'm getting noticed at last, and now's my chance to shine. I will work extra hard and put everything I have into this project. But it's a setup, as whatever the outcome, the boss wins and the employee loses. If successful, the response from the boss might be, I exercised excellent judgment in my choice of staff on this project. Another success for me and my reputation, possibly with the underlying, you can get back into your box now. Or if things don't go so well, that didn't work out and you've let me down. It was bad advice from you and showed a lack of judgment. Don't think I'm going to cover you on this. This is a classic tendency to attribute success to ourselves and failure to others. In either case, the employee is likely to feel a victim, carrying the belief that either I am a failure and will never make another suggestion in this place, or people always take advantage of you, so why bother? In the case of a more experienced manipulator, the boss may use this to take further advantage while appearing supportive. You've let me down on this one. However, I've decided to save your neck this time, but now you owe me. Rescuer and persecutor working in tandem. So this goes back to the debt game, as in the previous example, and can form the basis of an ongoing abuse of power or passive-aggressive bullying relationship. Various games can be attempts to undermine leaders, sometimes called upward bullying. We'll call this one the monkey, as it's about who ends up with the monkey on their back. So this game can start by seeking help from a child rather than an adult stance. For example, I am overloaded and don't know what to do. It's all too much. I need you to help. This appears to be adaptive, but is actually taking on the stance of a victim. The implication being that the boss is at fault for creating the overload. And it's also avoidant, with a hidden subtext. You need to make this decision for me. I'm not going to take responsibility. The rescuer, in this case the boss or a colleague, adopts the nurturing parent stance and provides support or makes the decision on their behalf. This may, over time, have developed a habit of supporting this individual, thus becoming the patsy, as it's easier than trying to develop them due to their resistance. And this pattern of behaviour could go on ad infinitum. However, if things don't work out, then it's the boss's fault, and the member of staff can switch roles and take the critical stance while still appearing dependent, but actually putting the boss in the accommodating position of adaptive child. Sorry, but it was your decision. You told me to do that. It's not my responsibility to sort it out. I don't know how to. So the boss ends up with the monkey on their back, meaning the responsibility to sort things out. Oh no, I should have paid more attention to this. What can I do to make it right? This disempowers them as leader, and they may start questioning their own ability. I'm not really up to this job, and it's only a matter of time before people see that. In effect, the rescuer has now become the victim. Alternatively, this same dynamic can relate to allegations of bullying, where the victim feels persecuted by someone and engages the rescuer to help, as in the drama triangle. But this mires the rescuer in a difficult situation with colleagues as the patsy in a situation which could backfire, particularly if the victim is generally perceived as manipulative or just in the wrong. The victim may then start to blame the rescuer for letting them down and starts perceiving them as a persecutor. And finally, so why does it always happen to me? People who adopt the victim stance may often repeat this rhetorical question. Why does it always happen to me? This is possibly because they actually pay more attention to negative outcomes and dismiss the positives, what we would call negative selective attention, which is another aspect of attribution theory. This may become a bit of a competitive badge of honour in some individuals who always assume my troubles are worse than yours, so you need to support me. Such individuals may not actually want to be rescued, as this would deny them the advantages to be had from being able to blame external reasons for their own failures. Rescuers, or nurturing parents, may constantly suggest solutions to their problems. Have you tried this? Maybe if you stop doing that. I know someone in your position who is successful through, and so on. All these are likely to be met by resistance. Yes, but, and a reason why that won't work and is not worth trying. This is probably one of the toughest challenges for leaders, motivating resistant individuals, and where they are intransigent, the temptation is to develop a workaround based on an adaptive stance, as previously described. However, it's better to confront the problem from an adult stance, but using a clear and directive performance management approach, or invest time in the kind of collaborative developmental style we've mentioned previously, where a coaching approach is used for delegation, gradually against agreed targets, increasing their input and rewarding successes to reinforce positive behaviours. However, it's vital that leadership coming from the collaborative, nurturing or rescuer stance is authentic and not a game in itself. Much passive aggression and gaslighting is cloaked with this appearance, and if challenged, the undermining response is, "I'm only trying to help you." There are few people more annoying than those who attribute their success to their high levels of emotional intelligence, positive thinking, or exceptional skill base, and overlook the possible role of good fortune. The underlying message conveyed is, "I'm better than you, due to my abilities and attitudes. If you can't be like me, then you're a failure." Or if things go wrong and they lose their cool, "See what you made me do with your negativity?" The point of all this is to find and live our best selves and our best lives, and these are based on genuine self-awareness and in recognition of the realities underpinning our relationships and interactions with others. That recognition generally comes from connecting with the adult self and addressing the adult in others to help shift from subjective emotional responses into conscious recognition of the need for more or less assertion or adaptation in order to bring about the best outcome. As stated, we all tend to inhabit all positions at different times and engage in interpersonal games, whether we like to admit it or not. Therefore, we refer to difficult behaviours, not difficult people, as behaviours can change. A fundamental question for consideration in the coaching or therapy session is where the advantage lies for the client in adopting or maintaining a position within a game, and what are the barriers for change. What is the motivation for remaining a victim, for example, or in exercising excessive control? Often there's an underlying fear reinforcing the position, or an insecurity regarding any kind of change, linked to feelings of failure. Clearly, the role of the coach or therapist is to facilitate positive growth towards more fulfilling aspirations in the client and in their relationships. Interactions can help in this process by clarifying manipulative behaviours, their emotional impact, and the appropriate shift required. Please check our website for further information on a wide range of tools and materials for coaches, psychologists, and practitioners. And finally, here's some further reading in this area for academics and students of psychology. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check the other videos in this series.